oh my God, it worked. I'm rich.
Yes, that is exactly how the law of attraction is supposed to work. And the fact that self-help gurus are adding in extra layers really goes to show just how nonsensical the law of attraction really is. Every year, some new self-help technique emerges that captures the hearts and minds of people. At one point, it was shadow work, the idea of confronting your most deepest thoughts and coming to terms with them. Another is the 5-second rule, which was popularized by Mel Robbins and pushed her career into self-help, which I talked about at length in the previous video. But if we're to go with what's going on these days, one particular trend that has stood out for decades at this point is the law of attraction, otherwise known as LOA. Perpetuated by gurus who believe this, the trend really started to pick up in 2006 when the book The Secret emerged and proposed a wild idea of how to get through life, manifest everything that you could possibly want in your life. It came at just the right moment as social media began to rise in popularity, and the idea of taking selfies, posting about your life, and showing off became part of normal behavior and culture. The idea that one could manifest everything they could want in their life fit well with the broad behavior of people and continues to do so. But as this trend has been going on for the past few decades, one would reasonably think that the teachings that The Secret proposed all those years ago would manifest into something at this point. After all, there are still plenty of videos in recent years that talk about the wonders of this strategy and that you simply need to be practicing it in order for it to work. And yet, I have my doubts about where the world is right now as a result of people manifesting it into existence. So let's talk about what's really going on here with the law of attraction and expose what I think is the real truth behind this. To really understand what's going on, it's important to know what is being asked of us in order to practice the law of attraction. And while some recent videos from people might be framing LOA in a different way, I'll be talking about that more later on in this video. And I would argue that it's better and more accurate to look at the thought leaders who really pushed this movement into the limelight, figures like Ether Hicks, Jack Canfield, Bob Proctor, and most importantly, Rhonda Byrne. These are all key architects to what the New Thought movement is all about, and they make it pretty clear about what the law of attraction actually is. Broadly speaking, the theory behind the law of attraction is that everything is energy. The chair that I'm sitting in, the glasses that I'm wearing, my voice, my entire sense of self is energy.
Everything?
But most importantly, my thoughts are energy. And when I send my thoughts out to the world, I emit a specific frequency that signals to the world at large and that the universe responds to. To practice the law of attraction is simple according to these architects, and that is simply that I have to tune my own thoughts to match the frequencies that other things are emitting. If I'm to attract wealth, I have to think of myself as someone who is already rich in order to attract money. If I'm to attract great health, I have to think of myself as someone who is already slimmer and is in the healthiest state that I've ever been in my entire life. And while plenty of those who follow this creed expand on this notion, suggesting that this law is even more than that, they would be wrong. I'd argue that they're not even practicing the law of attraction at that point if they do try to do anything beyond what has already been laid out. And the reason I know this is based off of the words of the architect themselves. and what they have talked about with practicing the law of attraction and what it's really about. Written in The Secret itself, there is a passage that reads like this: "You cannot catch anything unless you think you can, and thinking you can is inviting it to you with your thought." Some other notable ones are the following: you can think your way to the perfect state of health, the perfect body, the perfect weight, and eternal youth. You can bring it into being through your consistent thinking of perfection. The Secret. It takes no time for the universe to manifest what you want. Rhonda Byrne. Our job is not to figure out the how. It's to trust that the universe will figure out how to manifest it. Jack Canfield. You did not come into this environment to create through action. Ether Hicks. It's quite clear that the main driving point of the law of attraction is to focus on this frequency and thought process. After all, pursuing something in your own life means that you lack that thing, and by that logic of the law of attraction, you're only distancing yourself from that thing. You're effectively emitting frequencies to the universe that you lack this thing and that you're trying to attract it. Therefore, the universe, in all of its infinite wisdom, will not deliver it to you because it is simply confused about what it is that you're trying to do and what you want. Wait, you might be saying, this isn't entirely true. After all, there are plenty of studies out there that focus on this phenomenon, and there are other prominent figures that add credibility to this particular practice. Heck, there are lots of gurus and life coaches that have expanded on the law of attraction since then and continue to say that the law of attraction is working, and they have their own life examples to prove that. Well, on that last point, it is true that people are definitely repackaging it into something that's far more palatable than what I just described. But by doing so, they're eroding the very concept of the law of attraction, as I mentioned before. Trying to take action is clearly a no-go for the law of attraction, as the act alone, again, implies that you don't have what you're claiming to have. It's counter to the very thing that you're trying to practice, and the universe just doesn't know what in the world to do.
So I am Confucian.
And it's also worth noting that the examples that the people use to prove these things work are usually benign things. Take, for example, the 2 points this individual made in his video of this practice working for him, and therefore the law of attraction is working. The first of which is parking in the front row at the school that he went to. The idea that he manifested this to be able to park in the front row for several days is pretty bizarre, especially when you can do this no problem by simply leaving earlier to get to class.
My goodness, what an idea. Why didn't I think of that?
This is beside the point that weather, traffic conditions, and other people's commitments can just result in this space simply being available. The second is far more substantial, and it involves getting a windfall. When the guy moved and had to find work, his own mom called asking about his own financial situation and was worried about him not being able to make rent or being able to live in the place that he moved to. And the guy simply said to not worry about it. In fact, that the universe has got him and that he's manifesting money to him right this very moment. Sure enough, a few days later, his previous employer called him out of the blue and said that there was a clerical error and that they owed him a whole bunch of money from work that he did and just sent it off to his bank account. As great of a story as that is for him, and I'm happy that he is not in any kind of financially precarious situation, arguing that you manifested this into existence is also a bit of a stretch here. To me, it's akin to falling with style rather than flying and claiming that you flew in the air.
That wasn't flying, that was falling with style.
Life does tend to throw funny circumstances at or results at us from time to time. Sudden passings in the family or clerical errors happen, and those can result in massive windfalls for people, for sure. But saying that you manifested this into existence is a little weird and, again, just a stretch of logic. It's simply playing against the odds and hoping that they work out, just like buying a lottery ticket. You can manifest those things all that you would like, but the reality is that it boils down to a slim possibility that might end up in your favor. And this is just one example of the multitude of videos that try to emphasize that the law of attraction is effective and working because they have these examples. A lot of other individuals who practice this, claim it works, tend to focus on these very small and inconsequential things, and they do so by design because they present a very little risk. And so it just proves a proof of concept that they could apply these things to much grander things because these small benign circumstances just happen to work out in their favor. And when it comes to these larger and bolder claims that people tend to make, these are simply probabilities.
Why me? Why?
It doesn't always have to be about you.
There is always a chance that something happens and it can turn out to be something good for you and something life-changing for that matter. But you don't really need to manifest that into existence. You simply need to be living and being at the right place at the right time. It's called being lucky to some degree. Other individuals package these life moments as manifestation, and the law of attraction at work is simply just fake. And to go beyond that and saying that the law of attraction works for you when you're putting an effort to make something happen really is counterintuitive to the whole law of attraction, and really they don't really know what they're talking about. But then there is the studies themselves. The thing that the guy mentioned that he would be using as much as he possibly can to prove that the law of attraction actually works. There's even Rhonda Byrne, who continues to argue that the law of attraction is actually working because there are plenty of studies that proves that it is real and that it is effective and that you can actually use this into your own daily life. However, it's really worth digging into the studies themselves and figuring out what is actually being studied and what are the actual results and how these studies came to be. Take one of the boldest ones yet, entitled Counterclockwise. Researched by Dr. Ellen Langer, the study was conducted in 1979 and was groundbreaking for the movement, as it proved without a shadow of a doubt that the law of attraction was real and that it could age you back and make you feel even younger. And Dr. Langer explained that with enthusiasm in her study.
Well, first of all, through God, all things are possible, so jot that down.
Her evidence was merely a group of men who were in their 70s back in 1979. The group was taken on a vacation, and where the destination was set in the 1950s. Everything from the inside of the hotel that they were staying at, to the activities that they did, what they talked about, and even what they wore was all set to 1950s. Her proof was simply looking at these men and noting that by giving them a 1950s themed vacation, they felt much younger. And the individuals who leaned into that even further reaped more benefits from doing that. Surely this study would prove that the law of attraction was actually real and very effective and could effectively be this fountain of youth, as it were. Well, not exactly. Fast forward to 2014 and we meet an individual by the name of Bruce Grierson. He worked with Dr. Langer and made several observations about that particular study. The first of which was the fact that Dr. Langer didn't really have another group of younger men to compare data points to. As a result, Dr. Langer made this claim on either the men's own words that they felt younger, or had other random metrics that she used to determine all of this, which really just isn't scientific at all. It's all based off of hearsay. However, this behavior overall is really on brand with her, as Grierson noted that Dr. Langer was an eccentric scientist amongst the science community, and still very much is. All of this is to say that any reasonable person wouldn't be taking these findings seriously, which is very fitting for the law of attraction at large, because that's exactly what Rhonda Byrne did as well. Cherry-picking data points and spinning this as fun pop psychology, Dr. Langer, just like Byrne, presented this as a serious and effective strategy to living life, even though it is very difficult to try and prove this and verify these actual claims as being an effective strategy for this. This is beside the fact that going on a vacation is good for you, especially for those who don't always get to travel all that much or experience very many vacations these days. What these studies were just simply sent out to the public, and either the media picked it up as something fun to be talking about in passing, or is being used specifically as a way to further a particular agenda without even considering the damage that it would be causing. And the damage of the law of attraction and these studies are causing is pretty significant, as Byrne's work has resulted in newer versions of this way of thinking. One particular one is the lucky girl syndrome, which was a major TikTok trend a few years ago and was based off of no scientific evidence at all. So really trying to claim that these studies prove that the law of attraction is real is pretty telling, when the studies themselves are really just not that great of examples when you dig just a little into them. At the end of the day, despite everything that I have said, a lot of people vehemently believe in this. There's a reason why on Amazon, The Secret maintains a 4.6 stars out of 5 and has over 44,000 reviews and counting to this day. Heck, I would not be surprised if I got a few angry comments about me bashing and critiquing this totally legitimate practice of self-improvement. But let me say, at the very least, that I totally get it. I myself bought into this idea very early on in my journey that I could manifest whatever I wanted into my own life. I still distinctly remember writing an article emphasizing how you need to be taking action in order to get the most out of the law of attraction. Just like what the other guy did, and I myself am guilty of getting one of Rhonda Byrne's many products that she has revolving around The Secret. Even now, we can relate to the overall sentiment that this book delivers on. The Secret, and by extension, the law of attraction, is seen as a tool that helps us search for meaning and creating a sense of purpose. And in a world that is chaotic and messy, where we're trying to figure out our purpose in life and where we want to be going, this way of thinking just simply adds some kind of comfort to us. It keeps us grounded, even though what is being proposed is nothing short of pop psychology and something that you really shouldn't be taking seriously, as well as wishful thinking. It's relatable enough that people cling to this idea and will argue that it's a legitimate practice, much like religion or that the earth is flat. Being part of this way of thinking creates this sense of community and connectivity as people bond over this collective thought, even though this thought doesn't really have much merit to it. And of course, the figureheads take full advantage of this kind of thing. It's why Rhonda Byrne and her devotees insist that people like Einstein, Plato, and Shakespeare all used the law of attraction in their own work, and continue to use that as legitimate arguments and claims that this is a legitimate thing. repeating these things and bashing in the way that I'm doing means that the person who disagrees with this doesn't really get it, or is just confused, or is just going to end up being alone and forgotten and abandoned. But the reality is that just like getting lucky with your parking spot by manifesting that desire, it's more conjecture and can really just fold under the pressure if you try to explain that some ultimate being was guiding you along. It's bizarre, it's absurd. The point that I'm trying to get at is that it all feels so real because it's amusing to think about these things and to believe that these things are real, at least in passing. It's similar to crystals and how certain kinds have these supernatural powers, or more broadly, horoscopes. They're really fun to explore and to experience and dabble a little bit into it. The only problem is that when you're delving too much into it, you're really diving into a rabbit hole that forms a slippery slope into very cult-like behavior, extremism, and regressive thinking. Instead of trying to take action and growing as an individual, there's an entire movement that proposes that you think and live in a fantasy world where you can have everything that you could possibly want and that you just have to think about it. And the dangers of that is that when reality hits you hard, it's gonna hit you very hard, especially for those who are living very vulnerable lives right at this point in time. The law of attraction is simply one of the more grounded terms to the overarching New Thought theory. It sounds official, and when you have studies that say explicitly the law of attraction rather than something else, it adds credibility to it on the surface. But as I've explained in this video, exploring this and delving just a little bit deeper really underlies the exploitativeness and the dangers behind it. The real truth of this is that this way of thinking is a trap. Yes, it is absolutely comforting to be thinking in this way. Manifesting the perfect card draw and getting it is a good feeling. Learning about your horoscope and the personality traits that come with it is also kind of a cute thing and amusing as well. But trying to live your life like this is dangerous for a variety of reasons. And for those who try to encourage you living this way, simply have other plans and are trying to exploit you and get the better of you. And that is the truth of it. Thank you guys so much for watching the entirety of this video. It would really mean a lot to me if you pressed on the like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I love you guys.